discusses basketball, it gets asked a question about who you're choosing between Michael Jordan and LeBron James. They're, saying that we understand that it's generational, answering that kind of a question. But John Starks goes into explaining why it shouldn't be generational and why actually LeBron James shouldn't be in the conversation. And the conversation should really be had between Michael Jordan.
John Starks just went on The Breakfast Club and said something that the LeBron fan base is absolutely not going to handle well. He said LeBron James should not even be in the GOAT conversation. Not that Jordan beats him, not that it is close, but LeBron should not be in the discussion at all. And he gave his reasons. Let's get into it. Drop it in the comments right now. Do you think LeBron James belongs in the GOAT conversation? Or has that ship sailed a long time ago? Let's establish who John Starks is before anything else, because context matters enormously here. This is not a blogger. This is not a podcast host who watched basketball highlights on YouTube and formed a...
Crucial free throws missed by Cartwright, and the Knicks lead remains at 3. We're down to 50 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Starks, yes! What a move by Starks, who was able to sky to the basket. The Bulls call for time.
John Starks played in the NBA. He played against Michael Jordan multiple times in playoff series, in high-stakes games where championships were on the line and everybody on that floor was operating at the absolute maximum of what professional basketball demands. He was in the building. He was on the court. He was looking at Michael Jordan from the other side of the floor and trying to figure out how to stop him. When John Starks talks about what it was like to compete against Michael Jordan, he is not giving you a theory. He is giving you a first-hand account from someone who was there. John Starks went on The Breakfast Club and said this. He said LeBron James should not even be in the GOAT conversation. He said the real debate, the one that actually makes sense when you look at the evidence, is between Michael Jordan and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Those two. Not LeBron, not anyone else. Jordan and Kareem. And LeBron James should not be sitting at that table.
Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Who is the GOAT when it comes to basketball, and why?
Shot. Yeah.
Who is the GOAT when it comes to basketball?
Do I really have to answer that?
Do you hate that
because
question?
it's a generational question.
I know. It's
a
cool.
generational question,
cool.
right? The younger generation is always going to say
I'm going to say
LeBron.
Jordan. You know I'm going to say Jordan. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. When you play against somebody that did things that, like, how can this man be on all the time? We didn't see LeBron, and LeBron is great.
That is a significant statement. And the reason it carries weight is not because John Starks said it. It is because of how he said it and what he based it on. He did not go on The Breakfast Club and throw out a hot take for attention. He explained his reasoning. He talked about what it felt like to play against Jordan. He talked about watching film of those games afterward and trying to find the mistake, the moment where Jordan slipped, where the defense caught up to him, where the situation got too big and he showed a crack. Starks said he could not find it. He said Jordan simply did not make mistakes. Every time down the floor in a critical moment, Jordan made the right play, made the right read, made the right shot. It was relentless, and it was consistent, and it was the kind of thing that made you sit in a film session and genuinely ask yourself how a human being was capable of performing at that level without a single visible seam.
He truly believes Michael Jordan is the absolute GOAT. Why? Because the man just didn't make mistakes. Listen, this isn't just a fan talking. It's not a sports writer or a guy sitting in the front row. This is a guy who actually went toe-to-toe with Mike on the court, dozens of times. And he's telling us that every single time they faced off, Mike was completely locked in. He never had an off night. Zero mistakes. Even when this guy watched the game tapes later, searching for just one slip-up, he couldn't find a single thing. Jordan was just that perfect.
I don't think it's soft. I think it just has evolved into more of an offensive scoring game. It's not as physical because you don't have that big man that we had back in the day. Every team had 7-footers, low post players, all of that. And so we had to feed them. So in that lane was very congested. Mm-hmm. And so you had to fight your way in there just to score. Now everybody's spread out. Now it's just a drive and kick game. But as you can see during the playoffs, they going back to the old school rules. They let the hand check.
Yeah.
They letting things go that they normally don't let go during the regular season. And so
that is what separates the GOAT conversation from a talent conversation. There are a lot of talented players in NBA history. There are players who could score, who could create, who could dominate individual possessions and individual games. The GOAT conversation is not about who could play basketball at a high level. It is about who operated without questions, who showed up in the biggest moments and removed all doubt, who never gave you a reason to wonder whether this was the night the story changed. Stark said something that cuts right to the center of why LeBron has always had a slightly different relationship with the GOAT debate than Jordan did. He said there were always questions about LeBron, not doubts about his talent, not arguments that he was not one of the great players of his generation, but questions. Moments where the result did not match the expectation. Moments where the biggest stage produced something less than the legend required. Those moments exist. They are documented. They are part of the record. And John Starks, someone who competed against the player most people put above LeBron in this conversation, is saying that with Jordan, those moments simply did not exist in the same way. You never had questions about Mike. That is the exact quote. And it comes from a man who had every reason to find questions about Mike because finding those questions was literally his job on the court. Now let's talk about where the LeBron questions come from, because this is the part that the fan base never wants to sit with honestly. LeBron James has 4 championships. He has been to the finals 10 times. He has put up regular season numbers that nobody in the history of professional basketball has matched for the length of time he has maintained them. The scoring record, the all-around statistical production, the longevity, all of it is historically significant and should be treated as such. None of that is in dispute here. But championships come with context, and context matters in the GOAT conversation more than the...
Dr. J was here last week, and he was talking about, he disliked the flopping, the management, player management, where they rest the time.
Yeah, load management.
Load management. He said he disliked that. He said that.
I'm with him 100%. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? They talking about shortening the season. Well, they go shorten your contract. Mm-hmm. I don't want to do that. We can play 2 games. Mm-hmm. No, come on, man. You play 2.5 hours after that. You got people grinding their hours, from the time they get up to the time they go to bed, trying to make a living. Right. You know what I mean? You just playing 2.5 hours. And so I don't believe in that. It just, you got a job to do, and your job is to go out there and play basketball. And if you weren't getting paid, would you still be doing it? Yes. So just go out there and do your job, man. That's what you get paid to do.
Michael Jordan went to the finals 6 times and won all 6. 0 losses. 6 rings in 6 attempts. The narrative around Jordan in every final series he appeared in was not about whether he would win. It was about how dominant the performance was going to be. He never lost a final series. He never gave the other team the satisfaction of taking the trophy away from him. His finals record is a closed book with no unhappy endings in it. LeBron's finals record is 4 wins and 6 losses. Now, a lot of those losses have context worth acknowledging. He went to the finals as a very young player on Cleveland teams that were not built around him the way championship rosters need to be built. He carried situations that most great players would not have been expected to carry alone. The 2007 finals appearance with Cleveland is a real testament to individual will, forcing a team into a position it had no business being in. All of that is fair, but the LeBron GOAT argument does not survive on the losses being understandable. The LeBron GOAT argument requires the losses to not exist. Because the Jordan argument does not need to explain losses. Jordan never had them. When you are making the case for your guy, and the strongest part of the case is, but the losses were not his fault, you are already in a different conversation than the one Jordan's legacy lives in. Jordan's legacy does not require explanations. It just requires the record. Then there is the 2011 NBA Finals against the Dallas Mavericks. This is the specific moment that John Starks' argument points at without needing to say it directly. LeBron was on a Miami Heat team with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. The 3 of them had come together specifically to win championships. The Heat were the favorites going into that series, and what happened was one of the most surprising finals outcomes in recent memory. LeBron averaged 17 points per game in that series. 17. On a team built to win championships. in a finals his organization specifically designed for. The performance raised questions that did not go away because there were specific games in that series where the biggest moment called for the biggest player, and the biggest player was not the biggest presence on the floor. That does not happen with Jordan. The record says it does not happen with Jordan because Jordan never lost a finals. Starks also made a point that the real GOAT debate, the one worth having, is Jordan versus Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Kareem has 6 rings. He has the all-time scoring record that LeBron broke. He has 6 MVP awards. He has a career that spanned 20 seasons and produced consistent excellence that held up at the highest level of the game for longer than almost anyone else who has ever played. Kareem versus Jordan is a legitimate conversation. 2 players with legitimate cases. 2 players whose legacies do not require you to explain away losses in the finals. Putting LeBron in between those two is not elevating LeBron. It is crowding a conversation that works cleanly as a 2-person debate. Now there is the John Starks dunk story. And look, nobody comes on the Breakfast Club without the dunk coming up because that is just what happens when you are John Starks in New York. The dunk from May 25, 1993. Game 3 of the New York Knicks versus Chicago Bulls in the playoffs at Madison Square Garden. Starks went up, went over Horace Grant, and Michael Jordan came in for the block and got a piece of it. The Garden went absolutely sideways. The photograph has lived in basketball culture for decades because of what it represents. A moment of pure athletic will in a building that was already on the edge of its seat. And even in telling that story, Starks does something that speaks to the respect the people who competed against Jordan have for him. He acknowledges that Jordan got a piece of it. He explains it properly. He went over Horace Grant, Jordan came in from the side to block it, and Jordan being Jordan made the whole thing look better by being involved in it. He does not inflate the moment at Jordan's expense. He tells it straight. That kind of honesty from someone who has every reason to make the dunk sound as clean and uncomplicated as possible, it tells you something about the respect that the players who shared a floor with Jordan carry for him. And that respect is exactly what makes the GOAT argument from players of that era so different from the GOAT argument you hear from people who only know Jordan through highlights. When Tim Hardaway sits down on a podcast and picks Dwayne Wade's prime over LeBron's prime, he is coming from the same place Starks is coming from. When Lindsey Hunter does the same thing, same place. When these men who competed at the highest level during the Jordan era and the LeBron era both sit down and tell you there are questions about LeBron that never existed with Jordan, they are not hating. They are evaluating based on experience that most people talking about this subject do not have access to. The Breakfast Club interview also had Starks talking about what Jordan would look like in today's NBA. And Starks was direct. He said it would be unmerciful. That is the word he used. Unmerciful. Not competitive, not impressive. Unmerciful. The argument that Jordan's game would not translate to the modern era has always been one of the weaker pieces of the anti-Jordan case. The modern era, with its emphasis on spacing and three-point shooting and isolation scoring, would not have been less friendly to a player who averaged over 30 points per game, shot over 50% from the field for his career, and could create his own shot from virtually any position on the floor. It would have been more friendly. The modern game would have given Jordan more space, fewer hand-check fouls protecting the defenders guarding him, and cleaner driving lanes. The idea that today's game would reduce Jordan is not supported by any basketball logic. And John Starks, a man who defended Jordan, is telling you it would not reduce him at all. It would have made him worse for everybody else. The LeBron fan base's argument at this point typically moves to one of a few places: longevity, regular season numbers, the breadth of statistical achievement. And those arguments have real merit within the conversation about who was the more complete statistical package over time. But the GOAT conversation is not purely a statistical conversation. It is a conversation about dominance, about the highest stage and what happened there, about whether you ever gave your opponent a reason to believe they could take something from you. Jordan never did. LeBron has. And that gap, that single significant gap, is why John Starks is saying what he said on The Breakfast Club. Not because LeBron is not a great player, but because greatness and GOAT are not the same thing. And the players who were on the floor for the era that produced the actual GOAT keep telling you that the person who earned that title without any questions attached to it wore number 23 in Chicago. John Starks played against Jordan, watched film on Jordan, tried to stop Jordan, and he walked into the Breakfast Club and said LeBron should not even be in the GOAT conversation. The real debate is Jordan versus Kareem. That is it. If this got you fired up, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop your GOAT take in the